Let's go to our guest. Joining us now is Wyoming Congressman Cynthia Lummis, a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Thanks for joining us. There's another issue that the diplomats in Benghazi requested more security prior to 9/11. Of all of these revelations, the security requests, the change in talking points, and the availability of a military option, which is most concerning and serious to you?
Well, they're of equal concern, and we'll have an opportunity this Wednesday to get directly from Gregory Hicks, who was the chief contact for both the State Department in Washington while he was in Tripoli, and to the ambassador, his number one, who was in Benghazi and was subsequently killed in the attacks. And he was also in communication with the president of Libya. So he was the central figure in communicating what was going on among all of those entities. So it is actually rather incredulous that some of the statements he's making now, the truth that he was communicating was not in the talking points that were eventually used by Ambassador Rice on the 5 Sunday talk shows right after the event. Further, that aside, the issues of whether we might have been able to save those 4 Americans by responding appropriately and responding to their own requests, it will be of interest to me on Wednesday. And finally, we have to make sure that the truth comes out as to this effort, whether there were efforts to change the truth after the truth was known, and as well what we can do in the future to make sure that our people abroad are protected.
Congressman Lummis, this is Will Kane. Let me focus in on the first role you talked about, that of Mr. Hicks, that he was central to all of the communication in Benghazi that night, that he was essentially the point through which any communication from the ambassador on through to the State Department went. In other words, he heard it all. He heard directly from Ambassador Stevens. He heard the requests. And then he turned and relayed those to someone at the State Department. Can you give us some insight, or what you expect to hear on Wednesday, about who he spoke to at the State Department?
Well, we will give him an opportunity to tell his truth in front of the American people. And what he will say in regard to that, I don't know. It will be very important that you be there to cover it and that you show the American people afterwards what he says, because he is, in my view, the most credible source who was there real time in Tripoli, on the ground in Libya, talking directly with our ambassador before he was killed in an attack. And we know that both the ambassador called it an attack. We know that Mr. Hicks communicated it as a terrorist attack, and how that eventually came to be muddled into a spontaneous demonstration and a reaction that even refuted the statements of the president of Libya, and refuted it in a way that may have compromised our ultimate investigation, may have compromised the ability of the FBI to get in and find what happened in Benghazi, is quite disturbing and certainly an appropriate purpose for more investigation by Congress.
Congresswoman Lummis, Amy Holmes here. Very quickly, what was your reaction to White House Press Secretary Jay Carney saying last week that Benghazi was a long time ago?
Well, we are facing an administration that would like to keep it that way. And in fact, it is front and center in the minds of the American people. When I go home and do town hall meetings, I am always asked about Benghazi. I am always asked, why don't we know the truth of what happened there? The American people know that what was said by the administration and what actually occurred are not the same thing. They want to know how that happened. How is it that what really happened in Benghazi and was communicated by State Department officials to Washington was changed before it came to the Sunday talk shows.
Right.
That is a key thing that we need to work on and find out about on Wednesday.